The next morning, the sun gently streamed through the window of their hotel, reminding them of a new day full of discoveries. Marina quickly dressed in comfortable clothing for a mountain walk, light sneakers, sports pants, and a bright jacket. She took a small backpack with water, a map, and a few snacks in case the journey turned out to be longer than they had planned. "Are you ready for adventures?" Alexander asked, standing by the door with a small backpack on his shoulder. "Always ready," Marina replied with a smile, "especially when you are with me." They boarded the train that was taking tourists from Lucerne toward the mountain village of Grindelwald. The train moved slowly, gently rocking the carriages and opening views of the high alpine peaks, only partially covered with snow since summer was still holding on. Green meadows, small houses with tiled roofs, and pastures with cows created a picture of incredible beauty. "Look at those mountains," Marina exclaimed, squeezing Alexander's hand. "They are majestic." "Yes," he agreed. "Each peak looks like a separate story waiting for us to discover it." The train made stops at small stations where people stepped out for a short walk or simply enjoyed the fresh air. When they arrived in Grindelwald, the town welcomed them with silence and the freshness of mountain air. "Let us first find a map of the trails," Alexander suggested. "I want us to know exactly where we are going and to choose something unusual." "All right," Marina agreed, "but I would like to walk as close as possible to Lake Alps. They say the water there is incredibly clear." They entered a small tourist shop and purchased a map that marked the main routes and a few secret trails known only to the locals. The shopkeeper, a smiling old man with a grey beard, offered a few tips. "Do not go to the highest peaks without a guide, but the trails along the forest and lake are safe and incredibly beautiful. Sometimes you can see deer or even rare birds there." Marina and Alexander thanked him and set off along the trail that led up into the forest. The first steps were easy, but with every meter, the air became fresher and the surrounding trees made a soft whispering sound with their leaves as if welcoming them into their realm. "I never thought that mountain walks could be so exhilarating," Marina said, looking up at the height of the trees. "Everything around seems alive, and at the same time calm," Alexander added. "Here, time seems to stop." They walked along the trail for about an hour, and Marina noticed that the air was now filled with the scent of pine needles and fresh earth after the morning dew. Their silence was pleasant. Each step sounded only in the rhythm of their breathing. "Look, there is a small lake ahead," Marina suddenly exclaimed, pointing with her hand. "It is even more beautiful than I expected." Lake Alps glittered in the sunlight. Its water was transparent, and one could see fish swimming near the bottom. Tiny waves lapped quietly against the stones, creating a sense of perfect silence. "We can rest here," Alexander suggested. "Do you want me to take out our sandwiches?" "Yes, but first let us just enjoy the view," Marina replied, sitting on a rock near the lake. They spent a few minutes in silence, listening to the calm water and the gentle wind playing with Marina's hair. Then Alexander took out the backpack and laid out a small picnic. "Try this cheese," he said, handing her a piece of local alpine cheese. It is so aromatic and slightly salty." Marina smiled. "You know, here you feel like a part of nature, as if everything around you is alive." After lunch, they decided to continue along the trail that led up to a small cliff, from which a panoramic view of the entire lake and mountain peaks opened. The ascent was a bit more challenging, but the views compensated for every effort. "Alexander, look at this!" Marina exclaimed when they reached the top. "Every detail here seems alive, from the sparkle of the water to the clouds moving across the mountains." "Indeed," he agreed, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "And we are lucky with the weather. The sun is shining, but it's not hot, the wind is fresh, and even the people on the trail do not interfere with enjoying the moment." They sat on the edge of the cliff, feeling the wind blowing across their faces, and admired the view. Marina took out her camera, capturing the horizon and their small figures against the backdrop of the majestic mountains. "I want this moment to stay with us forever," she said softly. "And it will," Alexander replied, taking her hand. "Every journey leaves memories, but such moments become a part of us." They spent about an hour at the top, enjoying the view, photographing nature, and simply talking about life, dreams, and plans. Then they decided to descend back to the village. On the way down, they came across a narrow forest bridge suspended over a small stream. Marina walked first, but suddenly her foot slipped on the wet wood. "Oh!" she exclaimed, nearly falling. "Stop!" Alexander shouted, and quickly grabbed her hand, pulling her to a safe place. "Are you all right?" Marina smiled, her heart still beating fast. "Yes, thank you for being nearby. I would have definitely fallen." "It is nothing. What matters is that you are safe," Alexander said, carefully letting go of her hand but continuing to walk alongside her. "Even the smallest step here can be risky, so stay close." They continued on their way, and Marina felt that after this incident, her trust in Alexander had grown even more. She knew that he was not only a cheerful companion, but also a person she could rely on in difficult situations. Returning to the village, they wandered through the narrow streets, admiring the old wooden houses with flowers in the windows and small shops selling cheese, honey, and handcrafted souvenirs. "I want to buy something as a keepsake," Marina said, peeking into one of the shops. "Perhaps a small wooden box or a magnet with the landscape." "I think any little thing will be special. The main thing is the memories we take with us," Alexander replied. They chose a few souvenirs, and as they left the shop, the sun had already begun to set behind the mountain peaks. Marina felt that the day had been full, yet incredibly happy. "Tomorrow awaits a new adventure," she said as they returned to the hotel. "Perhaps even further into the mountains or to another lake." "And I am looking forward to it," Alexander replied. "We can explore even the places where tourists usually do not go." When they returned to their room, Marina sat on the bed, holding the map and souvenirs in her hands. She felt that these days in Switzerland would become some of the brightest in her life. And most importantly, she was experiencing them alongside Alexander, who had become her friend and companion in all the small and great adventures. "Good night, Alexander," she said, looking at him before lying down. "Good night, Marina. Tomorrow even more discoveries await us," he replied with a smile. Marina fell asleep with a feeling of peace and joy. It seemed that her and them alone would make up new trails and new places to build stories together.